Okay, I'm Italy Jaquith, and we are so happy to be here with you guys. We are part of this family for a long time, and I know maybe you don't know Puebla, but you have an extension house for this house over there, because a long time, Pastor Phil and Judy Jaquith going and sent for this church to Mexico for expand the gospel. And right now we have so beautiful church, like Pastor Jeff told you guys. We have 3 campuses in the city of Puebla. And each campuses we had 2 services. And when we come back to COVID, we closed for 18 months. In Puebla, that's really crazy for COVID. And the government say that no churches, no a lot of people together. And so we closed for 18 months. So that's really, really bad for us, because we only preach in Facebook for 18 months and the people go. And yeah, for us, that's really, really sad. But at the same time, we say, okay, God, that's your church. You know how in this moment you want to be careful with the church and empower the church. And when we come back, we saw that one. That God, that's the mighty God, care for our church, care for our families, and start growing so fast. And we start for 1 services in each campuses. And then 6 months later, we open a new campuses in each services. And so right now, we had 6 services and 3 locations in Puebla. And last year, we decided to open our new campus in Veracruz. So that new campuses is sometimes it's scary, because you say, I'm working really hard in Puebla, but when God told you, you need to open a new church, you need to say, obey, and yes, Lord. And we say, okay, yes, Lord, we want to open that church in Veracruz. That's 3 hours to our city. And right now, that church has 100 people. So in 1 year, they have 100 people. And so, yeah, I don't know. And then God told us, I'm glad you open and obey for Veracruz, but right now I want you open for San Miguel de Allende. And I don't know you, but San Miguel de Allende, that's the most beautiful city. That's a little town. There are a lot of people from here in Canada, more old people, gone to San Miguel de Allende and live over there. And so we have almost the 40% the population that's American and Canadians, and the another 60% that's Mexican. And so we start our new church over there, our campuses, 6 months, and we had 30 people over there. And so, yeah, that's so much stuff. And so I told this one because when you say yes, Lord, and obey, maybe you don't have the resource. Maybe you don't have your eyes don't see what God told you do it. But when you say, yes, Lord, that's the only you need to trust in, Lord. They're going to open big doors for you. And I had a surprise for you, okay? That's a big surprise. In last November, told us, okay, I'm so glad that you are doing the beautiful stuff for the church. 3 campuses in Puebla, 1 in San Miguel, and 1 in Veracruz. But Star spoke us, and they say, I needed you open an orphanage. And we like that, what? I have my orphanage with my kids. That's enough. Thank you, Jesus. I need a lot of help. And I was done crying because I have a wonderful parents. My mom and my dad, they are pastors. They are really, really nice men and women for God. And I know my father-in-law, and I start crying because I say, I'm coming for a good family. And I feel really enjoy, and I know my future is really beautiful. And right now, my kids, they have a really nice family, great parents. But when God spoke us and said, I needed you open our orphanage. And we say, okay, Lord. Maybe I have a beautiful family. My kids had a beautiful family. But not so many people had the same, and I had. And instead I say, okay, Lord, there's a lot of chamba. Chamba is work. It's a lot of so many. But I want to say yes, and I want to obey you. I don't have nothing. I don't have money. I don't have house. I don't have papers for the orphanage. But I have faith, and I have my obey for you. It does start in November. In December, like I see our services, we have a services that's a vision. And that's that Sunday we said that's a vision for the 2023. And we spoke for the people. Hey guys, we wanna do some amazing stuff for 2023. This is our vision. This is I wanna pray for this and this and this. And when we say for the next year, we know God gonna open for Fuente a house for orphanage. And the people start laughing and say, yeah. And and then I say, okay, Lord, I lo dije. I'm declared, and now that's your job. I'll only obey, and you can do everything. And my husband's in preaching. Sorry, I take a little bit of your time, but it's okay. It's Father's Day, right? You can, okay. I want to only tell you what verse I love, because right now I want to tell you a little bit more, and then my husband preached. But in Ephesians, sorry, my English I only practice when I'm coming here, and so. But I'm doing good, right? Okay, Ephesians 20, 4:20 say, now to him who is able to do more than we ask or imagine, according to his power and his glory. And for that Sunday, we declare, God, we want to do an orphanage for your glory, for to spend the glory, and I want to trust you. One lady in December told me, one lady that one of our campuses told me, Pastor Ida, I need to talk with you. In December, we are so busy, and I don't have the coffee with that lady. I have in January. And I really feel really bad, right? Because where you are, pastor, you want to make everybody happy. You don't leave your church, right? And so I said, I'm sorry. I don't, all the November, December, I don't have time. But in January, he said yes. And we go for a Starbucks, and that lady sit in front of me and say, Pastor Ida, I remember that day when you spoke for the vision for the 2023, and when you said that God told you, open an orphanage. I want to tell you something. And that lady grabbed my hand. So remember the story. We are in Starbucks, two ladies, one old and young, and grabbed my hand like that. And say, I want to tell you the story. This is 7 months ago. God told me I needed you building a new house. The zero. He said, and 7 months ago, I obeyed God and start building a house. I say, maybe that's a new house for me. But at the same time, no, I have a house. My kids, they have their homes. But I start praying and building that house. And when that start told me, they start crying. And I grabbed the hands, she grabbed my hand. And when they told me, I know what God told me 7 months ago, I need to build that house. Because when you spoke that vision day, the Fuente gonna be an orphanage. That day, God came in that chair and told me, thank you for obeying, for building that house, because that home is not for you. That home is not for your children. That home is for the church. You're going to give that house for the church, because that house, they want to start the orphanage. And when that lady told me, I started crying, and she crying, and we hugged in the Starbucks coffee. And for that moment, church, for that moment, God opened so many doors. And I want to encourage you. When God told you need to do something that you don't have, or maybe your resource is too much for God, I want to tell you, obey. Because that's the only something that God told you, you faith and obey. And I want to tell you, you want to be surprised at how many doors God opened for you, how many beautiful stuff that God do it for you. And so, we now have a house. We start remodeling, or not remodeling, put everything, because they're giving a new house, but nothing. And so we start with the papers for 8 boys, and we start for the 4 or 10 years they have the 8 boys. The age. And we want to tell you, pray for us. Pray for that new project, because that's not only new project. That's a really big ministry. For you can help for us, or you can pray for us. Okay. Thank you so much for your time. And my kids are here: Titus, Jake, Kasha, Anthony, and we love you guys. Thank you. And Joanna, I don't know where's Joanna. Oh, Joanna over there, Joanna. And thank you, Joanna and Titus J. We love you guys. And thank you, Church Rock Point, for support us, for send really that money. You don't know, but that helps so much for us for do the work. And so thank you so much. My husband and I preach. Sorry for the 10 minutes.
My wife's amazing. People from our church have also donated the fridge, the gas stove, all the electrical, all the wiring, all the bunk beds. So the only thing that's missing right now are just the children. So we're praying that very soon. Oh, and a vehicle. We don't have any way of traveling with them, getting them around. But we do believe that hopefully next time anyone from Rock Point visits Puebla, you can visit our orphanage. And you'll be able to see the kids. All right. So, hey, we're going to talk about fatherhood today. And I love the fact that, honey, you grabbed my phone and you got your phone. Yeah, you just did. Thank you. This has my notes in it. That Pastor Jeff started out with a dad joke, because I thought the same thing. I wrote mine down, though, so I hope they turn out. The one important thing about dad jokes is you have to laugh, because every dad's love language is laugh at my jokes, right? Please laugh at that joke. So on the way here, I asked my kids, hey, give me some funny dad jokes so I can read them. So I'm going to read you some of the ones that they gave me, all right? So here's one. What's orange and sounds like a parrot? A carrot. It's pretty good, right? How did the butcher introduce his wife? Meet Patty. These are great. Why do fathers take an extra pair of socks when they go golfing? In case they get a hole in one. One more. We have to do something spiritual after this. What happened to the man who spanked Dwayne Johnson? he hit rock bottom. And then we were talking, and they're like, well, what if they don't get it? And then actually my niece who's with us, Haley, she said, well, if they didn't get it, then they must be living under a rock. It's pretty good, right? Okay, well, it's such a privilege to be here. My parents were youth pastors in this very building, actually originally when it was a stone building on Main Street a long, long time ago. We're growing up, going to Rock Point. At that time, it was called Gospel Chapel. Going to something called Gospel Training Class every Wednesday night. Coming to family camp every week. There used to be a game room in the back with a foosball table. And it was home. It was family. Moving away was tough, but it's so amazing coming back every summer and seeing how this church has grown, how God is adding people, ministries. We love your pastors, Jeff and Karen. We absolutely adore when they're able to come down to our church in Puebla. Their prophetic gift is astounding. Every time they come and prophesy over our people and preach to our people, it's just amazing. So, Pat, thank you so much, Pastors Jeff and Karen, for your ministry and what you've done for us in Puebla. So, hey, fatherhood, I have something on the screen. It says the Bible provides guidance and principles for various aspects of life, including fatherhood. While it doesn't provide an exhaustive list of characteristics, here are some biblical principles and qualities often associated with being a good father, and there's 8 of them. All right, these characteristics are not limited to biological fathers, but can also apply to any father figure or parental role. The Bible offers many examples of fathers who embody these qualities: Abraham, Joseph, the prodigal son. So number 1 is love and compassion. A good father is characterized by unconditional love and compassion towards his children. He nurtures, cares for, and supports them emotionally and physically. I feel like dads, we're pretty hard on ourselves. We beat ourselves up pretty often when we do things that we didn't want to do, when we lose our patience, when we don't respond with grace, when we work so much, maybe don't leave all the time we wish we would have left for our kids. It's so easy to blame ourselves. It's so easy to say, I'm a bad dad, I'm a terrible dad. My kids, man, if they would have just had a better dad, they'd be better off. I think that that's one of the most detrimental attitudes that we can have, because as soon as we adopt that attitude, we adopt a spirit of failure over our lives. And the next time we see our kids, rather than saying, I am the person that God chose to father them, I have a calling on my life to be their dad, because being a dad is also, it's a calling, it's a ministry. You know, there's a verse that says that the children are the inheritance of the Lord. Your kids are God's inheritance that he decided to give to you. So you are the carrier, the protector. You watch over that inheritance, and you don't give away an inheritance lightly, right? You don't squander an inheritance. And when God says that the children are the inheritance of the Lord, but yet he places them in your hand, it means he believes in you, that you're going to be a great father. You're going to be a great dad. So rather than beating us up all the time, go back to these characteristics that we're going to share this morning. And love and compassion are one of the most important things. You don't have to be a perfect dad, but if you love your kids and you're compassionate towards them, they will always respond to love. Kids always respond to love. In the same way that you want to connect with them, they also want to connect with you. The next one that I found is instruction and discipline. Teach your kids. Be that role model. Be that example. And make sure that the discipline that you're using is not a discipline that will scar them. It's not a discipline that will break them. It's not a discipline that will even dishonor them or push them over the edge. But discipline, God disciplines us, and he's really gracious about it. Have you noticed how amazing God is at disciplining us? He doesn't shame us when he disciplines us. He doesn't break our spirit when he disciplines us. He's very loving when he does it. So this number 2 is so important. It's instruction and discipline. Take the time to teach them something new. And also when it comes to discipline, yes, there is correction, obviously. But make sure you're building them up through correction and you're not breaking their spirit. Make sure you're inspiring them rather than pushing them to a level of frustration in their own heart. Number 3 is leadership and example. I think kids look to fathers to be that leader, to be that an example. Teach them also how to lead. I have the great privilege of having all my kids here this morning. And why do I say all my kids? Because now my oldest son my oldest son Titus is in PBC, so he lives here in Oregon while we're in Puebla. My second son, Jake, is now also enrolled in PBC. So out of my 5 kids, we'll have 2 in the U.S. while we live in Mexico. And then I'm not quite sure what the other kids might do. But quickly, we're seeing our family find their own niche and their own calling and things like that. But one of the things that I've always, as a dad, desired to do is ask myself what each of my kids is good at. What are they? Because they're not all the same. They're all different. And they're all here on the second row. Anthony's very different than Joanna, and Jake's very different than Kasha. But the question I've always asked myself is, what is each one good at? And once I find what they're good at, I try and encourage them and push them towards a leadership role. Not to overpower anybody, but to lead out. Because when you're good at something, it's not hard to step into a leadership role because it becomes natural. It's not awkward. What is awkward is when you try and push your kid into a leadership position when he is not good at what you're asking him to do, when he wasn't meant for that, when he wasn't called for that. But you'll be surprised at how your sons and daughters will be able to be their own leaders and examples if you're able to find what they're good at. Number 4, provision and protection. A good father takes responsibility for providing for his family, not just in the material, but also in the emotional. He works diligently. He protects them from harm, both physically and spiritually. I think fathers need to be that spiritual, in fact, pastor. I think before your children are pastored at any church, they need to feel like they're being pastored at home, and you are that person to do that. So take the time not only to say, I'm going to tell Pastor what you're doing, because we've had that before. We've had families, at least in our church, it happens. The 13-year-old or 14-year-old, the mom or the dad will drag that kid up to me, and he'd be like, "Okay, tell the pastor what you did." "Pastor, get my son in trouble." Right, that he shouldn't be doing that. And I try and help and intervene, but it's very important that you be that first, rather than saying, I'm going to get you help with somebody else. When we do that, we're really saying, I don't know what to do with you, or I don't have the solution, or the I can't help you. So you be that first person for them, that first counselor, that first pastor, that first youth pastor, that first point of contact. They need your counsel more than anybody else. Number 5 is one of the most important, I think. It's time and presence. If you're able to give your children time and presence where you're connecting with them during the week, that means more than even material possessions. So many parents, fathers, make the mistake of, I want to give my kids everything that I never had when I was growing up. I want to give them that perfect education. I want to give them that amazing house on the hill. I want to give them what I never had. But if in the meantime you're not present, you're not there, more often than not, that your child, what he really would prefer is just, hey, when can you sit down with me and hear me out? When can we sit down together and just talk and laugh? And when are you not going to be in a hurry? When are we going to have a conversation where you're not looking at your watch or your phone or getting a phone call from a client or a contact or your boss? That, it's like, thanks for all the hard work, but time and presence is what children prefer more than anything. So when you're home, be present. When you're with them, schedule it out so that they know that you're connected with them and fully engaged and actively part and interested in their life. Number 6 is prayer and spiritual guidance. Pray for them constantly and be that spiritual guide for them. Number 7 is forgiveness and grace. Our God in heaven is so amazing at this, forgiving us and showing us grace. We should be the exact same towards our own children. If you punish your kids for days at a time because of something that they did wrong, that's not what God does to you, so that's not what you should do to them. How quick is God at forgiving us? I mean, it's instantaneous. He doesn't punish us for days at a time. It's spontaneous. It's as soon as we say, "Dear Jesus, please forgive me for my sin." I'm glad he doesn't say, "Let me think about it for a month," or "Let me take away your gifts and calling for a month," or "Okay, well, I'm going to cancel that really cool promotion I was going to give you." But don't we do that sometimes with our kids? "Dad, I'm so sorry. Okay, but I'm going to take away your privileges for a month. I'm going to take away your cell phone for 3 years." I've thought about that. And I know there's times that we do take things like games and social media and Xbox, Nintendo, PlayStation. There's obviously times where you realize, oh wow, we've overdone it. Let's step back and take these things away for a time. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about if it's your style to punish constantly in an overbearing and an unforgiving manner without showing grace, that could eventually affect their own trust in God the Father, because they'll just assume that that's the way God is as well. That he's a mad God, that he takes his anger out on us, that he's a punishing God, that I have to, in essence, we're making our children believe that we have to pay for our sins. If we mess up and we're always paying for our mistakes, it's very easy for a son of the church, for a son or a daughter of a Christian household to get the wrong idea about Christianity and actually turn their back on Christianity. But maybe it's because they felt like that God was out there making them pay for everything when Jesus already paid. It's paid for. It's paid for. It's paid for. The sins are paid for. He went through a lot to pay for each one of our sins. He went through a lot to cover all the bases. Number 8, faithfulness and dependability. Faithfulness and dependability. It's just you can tell the difference when you're speaking with a young person, if the father is faithful and dependable, or if he is sporadic and just not present. We have a situation and on our staff. It's a single mom, and she has 2 kids, and we love her kids. They're, I think, 6 and 4. They're part of our Christian school. They've been going to our church, I think, for about a year and a half now. But the dad left home before his 4-year-old even had the ability to remember things. I think he was just a few months old. So he has no recollection of his dad at all. Doesn't know the guy. Probably couldn't pick him out in a crowd. But the older one does remember. You'd almost think it'd be harder for the youngest one, never knowing his dad. But I see the youngest one, for whatever reason, he seems fine. But the older one, the one who remembers when his dad used to come home, when his dad used to hug him, when his dad used to be there for his birthdays and Christmas, and has not shown up for the last 3 years, he's going through a moment of so much fear and insecurity, trying to prove himself. You'll see him every once in a while, off in a corner, just kind of analyzing, scared. And he's gone through some moments of anger. He'll go home and cry with his mom, saying, where's Dad? It was my birthday yesterday. Really wanted him to call me. Do you see how important faithfulness and dependability is? Not every family is perfect, and it's very possible that you might be here today and you might say, this is all really wonderful, but it's too late, man. Never is, never too late. No, it's never too late to be an active part in the lives of your children. Regardless of what your family status or even marital status is today, your children need you, whether you believe it or not. Sometimes, especially the older they get, they might lash out at you. They might show anger towards you. Sometimes that's even necessary. Sometimes kids need to know that dad's the person that I can open up with, I can bare my soul, but he won't judge me for it. We'll still have that amazing relationship tomorrow. In 2 Corinthians 6:18, it says, I will be a father to you, and you shall be sons and daughters to me. I will be a father to you, and you shall be sons and daughters to me. This is Jesus, this is God the Father, talking to his creation. That's about as far out as if, I know Steve Jobs is not here anymore, but he's the guy who came up with, the Mac computer and iPhone. And wouldn't that be about as crazy as Steve Jobs picking up his phone and saying, you are going to be my son, and I'm going to be your father? Right? It's a phone. It's a phone. God could have taken that posture with us because we're his creation. He could have been like, these humans are just like any other tree or rock or animal, but yet he chose differently. When God says, I will be your father, I don't have to or need to, I want to. Having a father that wants to be there is 1,000 times more amazing than one that wants to be absent. It says, I will be a father to you. You shall be my sons and daughters, says the Lord Almighty. In John 1:12 and 13, says, but to all who did receive him, who believed in his name, look at this phrase, he gave the right to become children of God. The first verse that we read, it says, I want you, I call you. And then he says this, I'm giving you the right. So rather than having, we talked a little bit ago about the orphanage that we're opening up this year. One of our goals is we can't help all the fatherless and motherless children. Wish we could, but we can help some. We can help those that God places in our path. And the reason why we're fine with starting out small, because it's only a house that'll fit about 8 children. First, we're like, this is so small. Don't we want something that's a lot bigger? Then we thought about it. Most houses, they have about 3 kids, 4 kids, 5 kids. Yesterday, we met a lady that had 14 kids. So we figure that 8's a perfect number for those kids not to feel like, I live in an orphanage. That's not the term that we want them to use. We're giving them a home because we want them to feel like they have a family. And what we didn't mention is that we already have the mother she already moved in. We don't have the kids yet, but we have the mom. And she was an orphan when she grew up. And she was rescued by a Christian orphanage when she was just a child. And she asked to be their mother. She's a single mom. And we have the mother waiting for them. Can you imagine what it's going to be like when we receive some children from 4 to 6 years old who never knew mother and father, and we're able to say, this is not an orphanage. It's a home. This is not a random lady. She's going to mother you, and the church is going to love on you. You're going to go to our school. You're going to travel around with our kids. You're going to hang out with our family. It sounds beautiful. Put that in context with God the Father. God visits creation, and he says, these guys need a home. Humans need a family. I'm going to be their father. I'm going to put them in a family, and they will have the right to say, God, I am your son. God, I am your daughter. I don't deserve it. I didn't do anything to win it or to gain it. But because you have adopted me, now I have that right. One of my very best friends' ministry passed away last year. He was a single dad. He had 2 daughters. We've known them since they were girls, 20 years ago. He got married, and then he died in a car wreck last year. So now it's the 2 daughters who carry the father's name now have a mom that's actually technically it's their stepmom. You know what the first thing she did after her husband passed away? Even though by that time they were 18, 19, 20. She took the girls down to whatever office it is, or the courthouse, and she legally adopted them. And within the first few weeks, these girls posted to their Instagram, you always were a mother, but now you're our mom. You've been there for the last few years, but now we know you'll be there forever. And when someone adopts you, now you have the right to say, hey, this is my bedroom. Hey, where's my food? Hey, Mom, when's dinner? Because you're one of the family. And when John 1:12 says, but to all who did receive him, who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God, we can actually step in the throne room of heaven and say, I'm home. I'm a child of this place. I don't deserve it. However, I've been given the right to it, so I will step into it. I will live it. I will live as though it's mine, rather than the whole time, oh, God, could you, would you, maybe. When it's your right, then you can walk into a place and be like, I am home. This is my inheritance. And there are so many things that God has given you because you are his child. There's not a whole lot of time left, but one of the things that God has given us, and I've spent so many hours and hours and hours and weeks and months over the past few years studying this very subject, because I think it's so necessary for the church today. It's the subject of the power of God. Did you know in the same way that God gave you salvation and his Spirit, he also gave you his power? In Ephesians 1:19, that should be on your screen. I skipped over a couple of slides for the guys who are on the media today. So Ephesians 1:19 says, I also pray that you will understand the incredible greatness of God's power for, who's it for? I also pray that you will understand the incredible greatness of God's power for us, but then specifically those who believe. You see, a few years ago, I didn't realize that God's power was there for me all the time. I felt like I had to strive for it. I had to look for it. I felt like it was fleeting. I really felt like it was kind of a lightning bolt experience, that if you're in the right place at the exact time, it could, boom, hit you. But if you weren't at the right place at the right time, or if you weren't the right person or did the right thing, then it wasn't going to hit you, because I felt like the power of God was something that couldn't be controlled, or you couldn't just have it. He had to loose it on you. And then I found Ephesians 1:19, and I realized Paul was praying for his own churches, because he had a bunch of churches. He was praying for his churches, and he writes a church of the Ephesians, and he says this: I am praying that you will understand. He does not say receive. If the power of God was meant to be received, he would have said, I am praying that you will receive the power. What does he say? He says, I'm praying that you will understand the incredible greatness of God's power for us. It is for you. All you have to do is believe. A few years ago, before I understood this, I was a leader, but a pretty weak one. I was a pastor, but I was a pretty insecure one. We'd gone through a few church splits a few years prior to that, and I felt unqualified. I felt like I didn't have all that it took. I didn't feel like I was the man for the job. I was doubting myself constantly, just thoughts of doubt and insecurity. Then I found Ephesians 1:19. It says, I also pray that you will understand the incredible greatness of God's power for us who believe. And you know what I decided? I'm going to believe. What if I believed that this power was for me? What would change? I truly believed that God's power was for what would change. And I found that everything changes. And I want to give you 10 things that I have found in my own personal life that will change if you, and this is no longer just for the fathers, this is for the dads, the moms, the young people in this house. If you decide to catch this and say, I believe that God's power is for me, many things will happen in your life. I just got 10 of them to share you today with the time that we have, all right? So it says, if I truly believe that God's power was in me, there for me all the time, number one, you can take a picture of the screen if you want to, I would never envy or compare myself with any other person. Why? Because you have enough power to do whatever you need to do. No one has anything on you. No one has something that you don't have. No one has a one-up on you anymore. The reason why we envy and compare, you know why it is? Because we feel like someone else has something we don't. That's the only reason. If I'm envious or jealous of somebody else, I feel like they have something that I don't have. And so I compare myself. I feel like you have an advantage over me. That same verse in Ephesians, it says that the power of God that we have, it's the same power of God. It's the same power that resurrected Jesus from the dead. That power that you have, it's not any random, limited percentage. It's not a small percentage of what God has. It's all of it. Ephesians 1, it says it's the same power. So this morning, I want to challenge you, when you walk out of this church this morning, that you realize that God has placed and planted in your life all of his power. And when you feel weak, there's a verse that says, let the weak say. That verse, what I believe, it's not so we walk out trying to trick ourselves. The verse, let the weak say I am strong, isn't so that I really am weak, but I'm trying to convince myself that I'm not. So I'm like, I am strong, 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 I am strong. But I really feel weak. That's not the way it works. You're not tricking yourself. You're not trying to say it so much that you actually brainwash. It's a reality. In God, you are very powerful. You have more power in you than the enemy has against you. You have enough power in you from God to overcome every single enemy and opposition out there. Every trial and temptation, you have enough power from God to overcome, to be victorious. You will walk from glory to glory. You will walk from triumph to triumph. You will be victorious. You will, because God has placed his power in you. You are his son. You are his daughter. And one of the rights that we have that he in his mercy and grace has given you, one of those rights is you have the right to walk in God's very power. To overcome discouragement, to overcome sadness, depression, things that are very real. You know how I said that our church went through multiple church splits? That was in 2014. As a result of that, I had my own bouts of depression. It lasted quite a while. Ended up with an anxiety attack. I thought it was a heart attack. I went to the emergency room. My wife took me to, we were in Seattle when it happened, and so we Googled hospitals near us. We should have typed in cheap hospitals near us, because Google Maps took us to Lakeview Hospital, which is the most expensive hospital in Bellevue. And Bellevue is already one of the most expensive cities in the entire world. eBay's there, Google's there, Boeing's there, and Eric Jaquith was there. Went through the emergency room thinking that, because we don't have insurance. That's my point. We have Mexican insurance, but I wasn't in Mexico. So they took me to the ER to see what I had, and the doctor took my vital signs. I told him what was up. He said, "What do you do for a living?" And I said, "I'm a pastor." He literally said, "Man, you pastors need to learn how to trust in God." It's like, "Thanks, doctor." Made me feel wonderful. He said, "I think it's just a panic attack. Here's this bottle. Take this if you have one again." And he charged me $1,000. Actually, a little bit less. He really hooked us up. It was like $600. It would have been thousands. He actually said, "Man, you can't walk through that door for under $1,000." But he pulled some strings, and he was nice. He was nice. But my goal was, from that point on, this little bottle, my goal is to never have to open it up. Ever. I still have that bottle. It's in the drawer of my house. I've never had to open it up. But I had to be proactive and not just hope it never happens. I had to dig into the Word. I had to find the answer in the Scripture. I had to go to the Word and say, how am I going to be an overcomer? How can I overcome things like discouragement, all those things? Okay, number 2, I would never worry about positioning myself. I'm not a guy that has to be number one. I don't need to be number one. I'm fine with being a number 2 guy, number 3 guy, number 4 guy. I don't have to be a number 1 guy. So I was telling God, because he gave me these 10 things. It's like, "God, I don't have to be number 1. Why would you say something about positioning myself? What does power have to do with position?" And it really has everything to do with it, because human power is totally different than God's power. Human power has everything to do with position. Everything to do with position. God's power has nothing to do with position. If you're fighting for a position, it's no longer God's power. It's human pride. Okay? So I was kind of arguing with God, and I was in a Starbucks right then in Mexico City, and there was probably 50 people. Mexico City's huge, 30 million people. Can you imagine how many people were in Starbucks? There was like 30 people in front of me, 30 people behind me, and I'm halfway, and this guy comes out of nowhere, stands right next to me with his bags, because it was the airport. I take a step forward. He takes a step forward. I'm like, this guy's trying to cut in front of me. He's trying to cut in line. Come on, bro. Getting back. Anyway, he didn't. Every step I took, he took another step until finally it was my turn to order. Guess what he did? He stuck his foot in front of my foot and then ordered before me. Cut in front of me. I was so mad. And I heard the voice of the Holy Spirit say, "I thought you said you didn't care about position." It's like, God, we're in Starbucks. Come on. And the point is, we don't always want to be number 1, but what I've noticed about position, I don't always have to have the best position, but I don't want someone else to take my own position. Or once I get used to a position, I don't want someone else to come and take my spot. Or if Pastor Jeff hands me an area in the church, now that's my area of the church. And if he comes back later and says, "Now I'm going to have someone else do that very thing," if that hurts me, if I'm angry over that, then maybe I do have a position problem. Because when we understand God's power, position doesn't matter, because there's always something more for you. If they take away a position, they have not taken away your power. You catch that? If man takes away a position, he has not taken away God's power. And God's power is what will advance you in this life anyway. Number 3, I would freely serve my neighbor, knowing that this would not take anything away from me. God's power creates in you a servant. There was no servant like Jesus Christ. It says he came to serve, not to be served, but yet he was the most powerful being in the universe. God's power, once you say yes to God's power, don't be surprised that the first thing God asks you to do is serve others. Number 4, I would completely take my eyes off myself, knowing that my destiny is secure. Number 5, I would find faith in every terrible situation and believe that there is a master plan behind it all. Am I going too fast? You got your phones out? Yeah. Okay, take pictures. I would find faith in every terrible situation and believe that there is a master plan behind it all. 6, I would no longer have to struggle with self-doubt. I would not entertain self-condemnation. Self-doubt and self-condemnation is when your eyes are on yourself. When God empowers you, your eyes literally are on heaven. Whatever experience that comes your way, it will surprise you. I mean, there's been so many instances last few years for my wife and I, situations where only the power of God could have intervened. I mean, I don't have time, but it's situation after situation after situation, divine appointment after divine appointment. One of them? The time is okay. Our baseball manager at our Puebla professional baseball team called me the other day. He started going to our church. He's a GM of the team. Called me. Said, hey, would you please come pray for the team? I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll do that. And I went there that day, and the whole team was on the field around the pitcher's mound, all the veterans, all the rookies, and they said, I want you to stay and wait in the dugout. I was like, okay. So I stood in the dugout, and he talks to the team, addresses them. It was the very beginning of the season, and then I hear him say, and I want to introduce to you my pastor, Eric Jaquith, and he's right here. So I run out of the dugout. They're like clapping and like staring, and I go onto the baseball field. I've never been on a baseball diamond. I never played baseball. Well, maybe in a field once when I was 10. And so I stand in the middle of all these baseball players, a professional team in our city, and I share Psalms 91 with them. And I say, let me pray for you. And I say, I'm going to close my eyes. And when I did, I prayed a prayer of the peace of God over their lives, that they would feel God's presence. And when I opened my eyes, I don't know at what point, the whole team had gone to their knees, had taken their hats off and put them over their heart. And several of them had their hands raised to heaven. After that, I was able to contact a few of the baseball players, and I have them on social media, and I meet with them regularly. The GM is still coming to our church. He calls me whenever the team loses. Doesn't call me when they win. It's like whenever they lose several in a row, Pastor, you've abandoned me, when they've lost 3 in a row. But it's that times, I don't know how many other crazy situations that I didn't look for it, I didn't deserve it, I don't know how I got there. But when you don't worry about your own position, God puts you in amazing positions. Don't belittle the positions that God has given you. Don't ask for someone else's position. Don't fight for someone else's spot. Realize that God's power is enough, and it will be an adventure every day in your life. Okay. Should I finish? Only 3 more. Take pictures. 7, negative comments, poisonous criticism, and judgmental actions would carry no weight on my life. It won't matter if they make fun of you because you're not worried about their words anyway. Number 8, finances will never be a problem. Now listen, not because money's never a test. Money's always a test, guys. But because I would believe that the power of God is always present and operating to lift me up and beyond. 9, I would constantly delegate, release, and set up others for success, knowing it would never affect my own God-given power. When it's God's power, you will delegate and you will release because you're there to serve. You're not there to be number 1. You're there to make hundreds and millions of disciples. Last one, number 10, I would expect to embrace friendships with other powerful people as part of my atmosphere and calling. That one seems strange at first, but man, you see Jesus, his influence was far and wide. Why don't we stand to our feet? I'm sorry if we took a few extra minutes. God is our Father, and on Father's Day, the heart that He has towards you is that of compassion and grace. And He does believe in you. And He has given you the right. The right. That word is so strange to me. And sometimes we walk into God's presence so easily demanding things. Sometimes we walk in His presence so flippantly. Even every once in a while, maybe it's even with our fist in the air. God, why haven't you? Or God, why did you allow this to happen? Before you put your fist in the air next time, or before you stomp into His throne room and throw a fit or a tantrum, remember that the only reason that you're allowed to be there is because God in His graciousness and has given you the right to be there. We didn't deserve it. He didn't have to do it. He gave us the right. So next time we walk into God's presence, let's do it with maybe a little bit more fear and trembling, thankfulness and worshipfulness. But at the same time, confidence. Knowing that you are now standing not before the judge of the universe, even though He is the judge of the universe, you are standing before Dad, and He is your son. I mean, you are His son, and He loves you just as much as any father loves his son or his daughter. We can come in confidence, knowing that He has not only adopted you, my friends, but He has also empowered you. He has adopted you. You are His. He has also empowered you to be His representation on this earth. Thank you so much.
Let's give Eric a huge hand. Be the lead. Such a tremendous, powerful word. And we're challenged in those areas, and we continue to support them and just bless them, and just believing for just a strong fruitfulness in the orphanage endeavor as well. And let's just sing this song. We'll sing this worship song, and we're going to have some fellowship at the outside with some root beer and some wings, and just enjoy that as a church family together. And here we go. Let's sing this song.